Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Tigers Baseball Podcast. It is being recorded tonight, Sunday, April 21st, 2024. Detroit coming off a series win against the Minnesota Twins, and I am happy about this. So Detroit had 7 games against Minnesota in the last, 11 days. 10 if you want to be technical, because they had a doubleheader last Saturday. Thursday's game got rained out, doubleheader on Saturday, which Minnesota swept, by the way. So Detroit bookended the series at home, dropped 3 of 4 to Texas, and then took 2 out of 3 against Minnesota in Minnesota. So what we're looking at from that standpoint is 4 wins, 3 losses against the division champs. So in a 7-game series, Detroit beat them. In a best of 7, Detroit beat them. Now, all Detroit has to do is win 3 of the next 6, which will happen in July and August. And they've got a winning record against the division champs, again, for 2 straight years. Detroit never wins in Minnesota. They went in there and took 2 out of 3. Good times. And in all honesty, if Ryan Jeffers doesn't hit a homer last Saturday, Detroit takes 3 out of 4 against Minnesota last week as well. So, but I'm not going to complain. It's very hard to take a series when it's a 4-game series. Now, I know Texas came into Detroit and did it. Of course, they did it on the road. But Texas is an amazing road team. And Detroit played Texas tough. Out of 4 games, Detroit only lost on an aggregate score by 2 runs. So basically, Detroit played Texas even for 3 games. In the last game of the series, they lost by the 2 runs. They lost 9-7, and that was the 2 runs that made the difference in winning the series and losing the series. They lose 1-0, win 4-2, lose 5-4, and then lose 9-7. You take a Texas team that's averaging 5 runs a game in a 4-game series and hold them to a run under that, and you play them to almost even. This is a good team, folks. I know the record is only 12-10, and I know the offense isn't clicking on all cylinders right now, but this is a good team. This is a team that you don't want to play as an opponent. You just don't. Because that pitching staff, led by Tarek Skubal, with Jason Foley in the 9th, Alex Lang starting to figure it out, Alex Faedo pitching well, Joey Wentz pitching well. This pitching staff is tough. And this offense hasn't even gotten it started yet. Parker Meadows is just starting to get his swing back. Spencer Torkelson is just starting to figure it out. Spencer Torkelson, by the way, is starting to really come around. Riley Green has taken to that leadoff spot like a duck to water. Okay? Kerry Carpenter had a slow start to the year. I can tell you right now, in the last week, he's come on. He's gotten hot, and he's going to stay hot for a long time. because Kerry Carpenter is not one of them streaky hitters that'll go 4 for 8, or that'll go 14 for 18 and then all of a sudden go 0 for 18. He's going to be consistent. He might have some better few games, like in his series against the 2 series against Minnesota, he was outstanding, but he was consistent against Texas as well. So once he gets on track, he's consistent. His cold spells are more like warm spells. They're not cold spells because he once he gets his timing down, he's very consistent. Let's drop into some injury news real quick. Sawyer Gipson-Long is out for the year. He's having UCL reconstruction surgery. Now, this is different from Tommy John in the traditional sense. This is installing a brace and doing some other things to strengthen the ligament that's already there. And it's going to cost him the rest of this season and some of next season. The difference being is they're not transplanting a ligament or a tendon. They're just bracing the original ligament that's in the elbow. Gio Urshela is on the 10-day injured list because of a hamstring. He tweaked it on Friday in Minnesota, where it was 36 degrees at game time with a real field temperature of 29. And it was also snowing Friday afternoon in Minnesota. So it was chilly. Andy Ibanez is about ready to come off the injured list and go on a rehab assignment. He could start that as early as tomorrow, but he's not going to. He's doing some work. He did some work in Lakeland this weekend. He'll rejoin the Tigers in Tampa tomorrow. Well, he's probably with them today. He probably got in tonight. As a result of Urshela being put on the 10-day injured list, Buddy Kennedy was called up on Friday night. Got into the game yesterday and got a walk and hit a 2-run homer today, which was the deciding. Wasn't the deciding hit, but it was really the hit that basically gave Detroit the breathing room that they needed to finish off today's 6-1 win over the Minnesota Twins. So Detroit drops 3 of 4 against Texas this week, takes 2 of 3 against Minnesota. A 3-4 week. Over the last, since I released the last podcast, they went 5-6, but that's okay because, like I said, Texas is that's the defending World Series champs. So they're playing some pretty good baseball, and Detroit hung with them. Yes, they lost 3 out of 4 games, but they hung with them. So, Detroit really needed to win this series this weekend. I'd like to have seen them sweep this series. They lost 4-3 yesterday. Reese Olson was a tough luck loser. And there's been some sloppy defense over the last few games that has cost Detroit. They looked good defensively today, so they may have gotten it back on track today. But they looked really off yesterday, and that cost them the game because they came back in the 7th and 8th to make it interesting, and then of course Griffin Jacks came on in the 9th and just shut things down. So the reason that I say I would have liked to have seen them sweep the series in Minnesota is because they're on to Tampa Bay this week, where they never win. They have not won in Tampa since the inception of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, now Tampa Bay Rays. They just do not win at Tropicana Field. In all honesty, when Tampa gets a new stadium, when the Rays get a new stadium and they demolish Tropicana Field, I want to be there. I want to be there, and I want to go up to the spot where the footprint is or was from that stadium and pee on it. And I think all Tigers fans should have the chance to do that, because they just do not win at Tropicana Field. It's they're snake bit there. There is now they've got Scooble going tomorrow night, which is going to give them the best chance to win. And maybe Maeda bounces back on Tuesday against the Rays. And I say that because he looked good in Florida. He looked good where the weather was warm. We haven't had really warm weather for him to pitch in. Oh, last Saturday in Detroit was nice, but it wasn't as nice as it could have been. And I really think that the weather has been what's caused him to have such rough outings over his initial starts here. I really do think that he's affected by the weather, and I think he might pitch well on Tuesday. So we'll see. It's a different Tampa team as well. Just as a side note, the 12-10 record that the Tigers have would tie them for 5th in the American League East. Boston is bringing up the rear in the American League East with the identical 12-10 record that the Tigers have. That should tell you something about how good that division is. Casey Mize pitched well today. He didn't allow any runs, went 6. Honestly, good pitching performances all weekend long. Jack Flaherty went 6 on Friday. Reese Olson went 5 yesterday, but they were big inning. It was important for him to do. Actually, I think Reese Olson went 6 yesterday. I think everybody went 6 innings this weekend, which really allows AJ Hinch to rest his bullpen and do what he needs to do with that pen, especially with Tampa coming up. Then there's an off day on Thursday, and they're back home on Friday. So this next weekend, they have the Royals in town, I do believe, and it's Dan Dickerson bobblehead day next Saturday. So we've got a big test this week. We've got the Rays coming up, and we got the Royals. We'll see where this team goes. We will see where this team goes. Kansas City always plays Detroit tough, and Kansas City's playing some good ball this season. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're playing good baseball. And this is a team that's ahead of the Tigers. The Tigers are 3rd in the division. This is the team they need to beat. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see how it goes this weekend. And hopefully the weather will allow them to get in there and actually play without having any unscheduled days off. So I want to thank Anchor for distributing the podcast to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, your podcast aggregator of choice. Catch us on our YouTube channel if you would, youtube.com/@TBpodcast. We're on Mastodon @TBpodcast @tweezcake.social. That's Tweezcake, TWEESE cake.social. And we're on Twitter @PodcastTigers. You can also email the show, tigersbaseballpodcast@gmail.com. It's the longest email address in the world, and I'm sort of proud of that. We will catch up with you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening, folks. On to Tampa. Go Tigers.